Hi and welcome to Daily Chess and my coverage of the Grandmaster Tournament in Dortmund 2013. The field features some very strong players, including Kramnik, Wang Hao and Caruana. And today I would like to present you the games of the first round, and which saw three results. Kramnik outplayed Wang Hao. This is the game which I want to show you now. Meier outplayed Naiditsch, and Fabiano Caruana managed to outplay Andrejkin with black. And let's just go through the game here. Kramnik against Wang Hao. d4, d5, c4, c6, so Slav defense. Knight f3, knight f6, knight c3 on classical development, and d takes c4. The move e6 leads to the semi-Slav, and the move a6 to the Chempanenko Slav. But d takes c4 is the pure Slav, the classical Slav defense. a4 in order to stop black from playing b5 and securing the pawn. And now the usual system is bishop f5, with the idea of, okay, d takes c4 in a way wins the pawn, so white needs time to regain the pawn, and in the meantime black tries to solve one of his issues, which is the bishop here, to put him outside the pawn chain before playing e6. Because compared to this line here, the bishop is very passive on c8, but not for a very long time, because Wang Hao had a very concrete plan in mind, playing after e3, c5, and this variation became popular quite some time ago. It was due to the efforts of Grandmaster Kramnik, who discovered some interesting possibilities and ideas for black, and that this line is actually fully playable. And playing this very line against Kramnik is certainly very risky. Bishop takes d4, c takes d, e takes d. So this was black's whole idea, to play against an isolated queen's pawn. Kramnik certainly doesn't fear this. I mean, he's an expert in these systems, so he knows how to play these lines quite well. Well, isolated queen pawn's position. Well, what can be said about this? First of all, the pawn on itself is a weakness, because it cannot be protected by a pawn from e3 and c3 anymore. But and in a way, black certainly just needs to exchange some couple of pieces and triple on the d file, try to stop the further advance of this pawn, which is also one plan, and try to triple the pieces and to put pressure on this pawn, which will highlight it as a weakness. There are basically three phases, or levels of how to play against an isolated queen pawn. First of all, try to control the square in front of it, so it cannot move, and white cannot simply open up lines, use maybe his better piece coordination, and try to get rid of his weakness. So try to control the square in front of it. Second is try to exchange minor pieces. Why? First of all, this pawn provides certain compensation for being a weakness in terms of e5 and c5, and especially on e5. When a knight goes there, it controls some squares, and some sacrifices might be possible later on, maybe f4, f5, opening up lines, and it might be the start of a kingside attack. And with less minor pieces, especially with knights off the board, the compensation for this weakness becomes quite serious, because it's more a weakness than a strength then, and the compensation white has for this pawn will simply vanish. Okay, this is the first plan of controlling the square. Second is to exchange minor pieces without altering the structure too much. And the third plan is to double and maybe even triple on the d file and try to pressure this pawn by direct attack. White, on the other hand, has another interesting plan. You can of course play knight e5 in a very powerful setup, maybe even queen d3, bishop b3, c2, and try to put some pressure here, especially after bishop g5, trying to remove the defender. Most likely it will provoke some weaknesses here on the king side, which you can later try to exploit by tactical means. But additionally, there's the idea of playing d4, d5, which will be a major theme here in this game, where white simply tries to open up lines and use the fact that he had more space and could coordinate his pieces better than black. So the game went knight c6, cancel, bishop e7, and a very strong idea, queen e2. It's a very important idea because this position is similar to one which arises from the queen's gambit, except that, but without the pawn being on a6 yet. And this gives white a very strong idea and gives him for especially good compensation if black is greedy and tries to take this pawn. After knight takes d5, queen takes d5, knight b5, already hitting the queen. If she goes to b6, bishop e3 comes, so queen d8, bishop f4, renewing the threat of knight c7, and after castle, knight c7. Well, there was one game which is between Khenkin and Fridman from Frankfurt 2010, which went rook b8, rook f to d1. I think it's a better rook. Rook a to c1 has to be on a c file. Bishop d7, knight takes e6, a very, very strong move. After f takes e6, bishop takes e6. Giving a check, hitting this pawn, and the bishop controls b8. So after king h8, bishop takes d7. Well, maybe bishop takes b8 was also possible, but bishop takes d7, knight takes d7, and bishop takes b8 finishes the game, because if the queen takes, the knight hangs, this bishop is hanging. Maybe first take the bishop, and white's completely winning here. After bishop c5, bishop c3. White was simply an exchange up plus a pawn, so and certain pressure still on the d file, so just threatening to play queen d3, and the game is just over. So therefore he didn't take and played cancel. Rook d1, okay, already lining up here against the queen, so d5 being possible. Knight b4, which is a very typical maneuver. With the idea of playing knight b4 and knight d5, we try to increase the blockade here on the d5 square, and later maybe even follow with bishop with b6 and bishop b7 controlling d5 once more. Bishop g5, and now I've considered knight fd5, for example, and if bishop takes e5, knight takes e5, knight e5, knight d5 looks very, very good for black. I think he has very good play there. Knight takes d5 is probably a bit stronger. Knight takes d5, bishop takes e4, because if the bishop takes on d5, we first take on g5, exchanging more pieces. The bishop is hanging, has to retreat, and then bishop f6 to come. The bishop takes e7, knight takes c7, knight e5, and knight d5. I think black is doing quite well here. I mean, he managed to exchange some pieces, and okay, there are only two real attacking pieces right now, and I think he's doing, he's okay. Bishop d7 certainly underestimates the next move. Probably he did not manage to calculate properly. d5. White's better developed, he has more active pieces, and therefore decides to open the position even more. And this gives him certain pressure. For instance, after e takes d, knight takes d5. Now, for instance, knight f to d5, bishop takes c7, knight takes c7, and knight e5 using the pin. After knight e simply bishop takes d5 with a better game. And knight b to d5 is similar. Knight d5, knight takes d5, rook takes d5, having this this pin here and double attack on the bishop. So bishop takes g5, knight takes g5. In a way, just threatening queen d3, because then we attack h7 with mate and increase the pressure on this pinned bishop here. Therefore, after queen rook c8, queen d3 comes, g3 has to be played, and knight e4 is even stronger, because okay, if you take the bishop, the knight would be hanged. So knight e4, it's just threatening to exchange everything off. So rook c7, for example, just to take here on d7, take with the queen. If the queen takes, knight f6 with a fork, and winning the piece back, being up knight up. Therefore h6, queen d2, maybe queen d3 was also interesting, but okay, queen d2 is not bad. H takes g, rook takes d, queen f6. And if you compare the position, I mean, he has a double pawn here, which is a bit of a weakness here, but the most important feature is the rook here, the very active rook, which can already pressure some pawns here. Here I've considered maybe rook b7, with the rook f to d8, queen e3, the drawback being that the queen is a bit vulnerable, and after rook e8, rook takes a7, for example, with the idea that rook takes e3, rook a8, king h7, f takes e, queen takes b. Yeah, wins, at least, you have two rooks against a queen, which is usually not bad, but I'm not quite sure how to assess this position, because after rook f1, for instance, queen b3, a5, queen takes e3, king h1, White's coordination is very, very poor. I mean, as his rooks are not coordinated, he has to, be careful about his back rank weakness. g4, g3 might come, fixing this pawn here in this back rank. I'm not sure if White has enough resources to play for a win here. If White can somehow manage to play something like this, the rook behind the pawn, I think he's winning. But without this, it's very, very difficult. These rooks are just not connected. So rook d1, rook f to e8, and now rook to b7. Because after rook a to d8, he can play rook d7. Takes, rook b8, queen takes, rook takes. And despite being a pawn up, it's not very easy to convert it. I mean, his rook is very active, can go to a2, pressure this pawn here, and it's not very easy to push it forward without being captured. I mean, this rook certainly needs to stay there. There's also a back rank weakness here, and it's certainly a bit dangerous. I mean, for instance, rook a1, something like this might happen, and if he takes, just take with check, queen, and take the pawn. So therefore, king takes. Cannot even take. So therefore, this would be of course horrible. Therefore, Kramnik played h3, now creating a Luftloch, already now getting rid of this back rank weakness. And now, which is a bit surprising, Wang Hao played rook a2. And if you don't know the solution, pause this clip because it's a tactical exercise and try to see how Kramnik punished this blunder. Stop this clip for a moment and resume it in a few seconds where I give you the example, the solution. Well, there's a problem with this diagonal. And he played rook b8, queen b8, check, and after king h7, queen b1, or king h6 doesn't matter, queen takes a2 just wins. Therefore, after queen b8, Wang Hao resigned. Yeah, I mean, he was certainly under pressure. I mean, this was probably, he had some drawing resources, but certainly it was only White who played for a win here. And it was a very powerful display by Kramnik how to handle this isolated queen pawn position and how to punish his opponent's rather passive play. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this clip. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel here, and maybe check out my website www.dailychess.org. And if you have any suggestions, improvements, or ideas which I missed or didn't mention, or I don't know, maybe wrongly assessed, just leave a comment on my YouTube channel. I will try to reply to it as soon as possible. And yes, otherwise, please subscribe to it and share this show to your chess friends. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.